one of the things that we as penetration testers need to know is navigating through the system with the help of a command line. Now, this is a prerequisite that we're going to cover, so if you're already familiar with Linux and terminal commands, feel free to skip these few lectures that we will devote to it. Okay, now, for those of you who are not familiar with terminal, you are probably wondering, why do we need to learn this? What is the purpose of using a command line? Well, terminal, as we already mentioned, is a command line interface that allows us to control and navigate through the system. It isn't a graphical user interface, so it's rather simple. You type in a command and you get the output. In Linux systems, it's called terminal, while in Windows systems, it's called command prompt. Now, one of the reasons why this is important for us is when you gain access to the target during your penetration test, you won't really get a desktop access to it. You won't be able to see all the icons, the programs, its desktop. None of those things will be visible to us. Instead, we will control their system with a command line tool by running different commands. With time, you will start using terminal more and more, and you will get better and better. But for the purposes of this course, we're just going to cover some basic commands in this section, and we will also learn a couple more advanced commands during the course. So let's start by checking how we can open the terminal inside of our Kali Linux machine. There are a couple of ways that we can do this. If we go up here, we're going to see a couple of icons, and this icon right here is actually terminal. As you can see right here, it says terminal emulator. If I click on it, it will open the terminal tool. Here it is. Now, there are a few things that we can see right here. We can see the name of our account that we created during the installation of Kali Linux, and we can see the path right here in the brackets, and this is the path in the system. Now, before we run any command right here, let me just explain this path a little bit more, just so we can fully understand it. So I'm going to close the terminal right here, and that path that you saw depends on where you open the terminal. For example, I can also go on my desktop, right click, and go open terminal here. You will notice we will open everything that looks the same except this path. We open terminal in /desktop directory. And you can do this in any folder that you want. You can go in home directory, open terminal there. You can go in downloads directory, documents directory, and the path to that directory will be written in these square brackets right here. Okay, another way that you can check the full path to the directory that the terminal is opened in is by typing the command pwd. If I press enter, it will give me the full path to the desktop directory, which is /home, /Mr. Hacker, and /desktop. Now, to see the contents of the directory that you're inside, you can type the command ls. And you will notice once I type this command, it will be an empty list, since there are no files or folders in the desktop directory. But this doesn't mean that all the other directories are also empty. For example, we can also open another terminal, which will be in this directory right here and not in desktop directory. And if I type ls here, well, now we get some response back. We get a list of other subdirectories that are inside of this directory right here. And we also get the desktop directory. So we can conclude that this desktop directory that we are inside in this first terminal is actually a subdirectory of Mr. Hacker. Now, to navigate inside of one terminal between multiple directories, we can use a command cd. And let me just show you right here. So I'm going to close this one. Let's go back to the one that is in the desktop directory, and we can use the command cd and then, for example, /home. You will notice instantly that the path changes. We're no longer inside of /desktop, we are in /home. And we can prove it by typing pwd, which will tell us the directory name. By the way, if I didn't mention, pwd stands for print working directory. Now if we type ls here, well, we get only one response, which is Mr. Hacker. So how can we go to this Mr. Hacker directory? Well, we can also use cd and then Mr. Hacker. And we're back to Mr. Hacker directory. If I type ls, you will see an already familiar response. Okay, but how can we go one directory back, for example? Let's say we are currently in Mr. Hacker directory and we want to go back to /home directory without having to type cd and then /home. Let's say we don't know what is the directory name and we want to go one directory back. Well, we can do by typing cd and then 2 dots. If I press enter, you can see that we're currently back in /home directory. So the command cd and then 2 dots actually puts us one directory back. Okay, awesome. Now that we know these commands, let's navigate to /home, /Mr. Hacker, and then let's go to the desktop directory of Mr. Hacker. Now let's cover a new command, a command that will allow us to create files. That command is called touch. Now, touch creates empty files, and all we need to do to create an empty file is type touch and then the file name. Let's call it file1. If I type ls again, and remember ls is a command that will list all the files and directories inside of the current working directory, now we get a response. We have file1 inside of our desktop directory. And even if I go and lower this terminal, you will see the file1 on our desktop. So we successfully created it. Now, the same way that we can create files, we can also create folders. The command to create a folder would be mkdir, which stands for make directory, folder1. Now, keep in mind this file1 and folder1 you can name anything you like. This is just a name that you give to your file /directory. And if I type mkdir folder1, I lower my terminal. Now we have folder1 on our desktop. And we will also see it if I type ls. As we can see, we have file1 and folder1. Another useful command would be to copy files. So let's say we want to copy this file1 inside of folder1. How can we do that? Well, we use the command cp. And it works like this. We type cp and then the file that we want to copy and then the location where we want to copy it. In our case, we can specify cp file1 to folder1. Now, we don't need to specify the full path to folder1 because the folder1 is already in /desktop directory. But if folder1 was in some other directory, we will have to specify the full path to it in order for this file to be copied to the correct location. So let's press enter. If I type ls, we will still have file1 in our desktop directory, but if we also cd to folder1 directory and type ls, well, we have file1 in folder1 directory as well. So we successfully copied it. Now, compared to the copy command, we also have the move command. It does the same thing, just it doesn't copy, it simply just moves the file from one location to another. So once you use the move command, the file will no longer be in the first location that it was at, rather it will be in the location that you moved it to. So let's see how that works. Let's say now we want to move the file1 from the folder1 to the home directory. We can do that by typing mv, which stands for move, file1, and then to /home directory. If I press enter, it gives me permission denied. Now, permission denied is something that we will talk about in the next lecture. For now on, let's just forget it and we will get to it in the next lecture. Let's just change the path where we want to move our file1, so we can type move file1 to /home /Mr. Hacker. Okay, this one worked. We didn't get any error that says permission denied. So now let's see whether we first have the file inside of folder1. If I type ls, you will notice that our file is no longer here. So we moved it. Now let's see whether we moved it to the correct location. We can copy this location and type cd and then /home /Mr. Hacker. If I type ls here, well, here is our file1. We successfully moved it to the /home /Mr. Hacker directory. Now, another interesting command that we can use is called echo. If I type echo and I type, for example, hello world, like this, so echo, open double quotes, hello world, and then close double quotes, it will just print out hello world inside of our terminal. But if I do something like this, echo, hello world, and then I use double arrow to the right, and then our file1, well, we don't really get anything printed out. But what did we do right here? Well, in this command, we actually used this string and we put it inside of file1. So now file1 is no longer an empty file. It contains this text. How can we check it out? Well, we can check out what are the contents of file1 with the help of another command. And that command is called cat. So cat file1 will print out the contents of that file. If I press it, here it is. We can see the content of file1, which says hello world. Now, you can also check the contents by going and visiting file1, like this, even though it will be empty because we actually inputted our string in file1 in /home/MrHacker directory and not in /desktop directory. But nonetheless, you can also enter something here if you want. But it's important that we get used to using terminal instead to do these simple tasks. So now that we learned how we can create empty files, how we can write things in empty files, and how we can actually switch between different directories, how we can copy files, move files, and all of that, let's also see how we can delete files. For example, we're in our /home/MrHacker directory, and we can confirm that once again by typing pwd. And let's say we want to remove this file1. We no longer need it, so let's just remove it. We can use the command rm. And after the rm command comes the file name. So if I type rm file1, press enter, and then ls again, we no longer have file1 in this directory. However, we do still have it inside of our desktop directory. So let's delete it here as well. To go to desktop directory, I can type cd /home/MrHacker/desktop. If I type ls, we have file1 in folder 1, and I can type remove file1 or rm file1. Let's also try to do that with folder 1. If I type remove folder 1, we get an error. Cannot remove folder 1, it is a directory. So how can we remove directories? Well, instead of just typing rm and then the directory name, we can type rm folder 1 and then at the end we add -r. With this command, we can remove a directory. If you notice, when I type ls, we no longer have file1 or folder 1. Okay, I hope you understood all of this. Now don't worry if this seems a little bit confusing to you. Make sure that you practice these commands, make sure that you practice navigating with cd command, creating files, deleting files, copying files, and all of that. And in the next video, we'll continue with some new commands that we can use inside of our terminal. Okay, awesome. See you in the next video.